Hello everybody. Today we are going to read one of Shakespeare's comedies called the As You Like It. It was written in the year 1598-99. It is a romantic comedy. The plot is very simple. It is about two brothers, two evil brothers and two good brothers, and how the conflict between them is eventually resolved. It is also about marriages. It is about marriages of four couples in the very end of the play. As the play unfolds, the readers are entertained, and also the viewers who watch the play on the stage are amused by the wit and humor of the characters. The play is very interesting and it follows a typical Shakespearean comedy. On one level, the play is intended to just entertain us. We enjoy reading it, but at a deeper level, the play definitely has something to tell us. The characters that come across talk about various aspects such as life, love, death, and marriage. We get a deeper understanding of these subjects as we read through the play. At the center of As You Like It is a major character called Rosalind, who is considered as one of the most powerful ladies that Shakespeare has ever written. She is actually a heroine who is more powerful than the hero of the play. Her views on love, her views on marriage come across right from her heart, and she teaches her beloved about what love is all about. Jacques, who is actually the fool of the senior duke, is a person who is very pessimistic in life. As opposed to him, Rosalind has a very optimistic view of life. She enjoys life as it comes through to her. As the play unfolds, we realize that there are many characters in the play who really transform themselves. As it's been said many a times that Shakespeare's characters are not flat, they are round characters. People move from the city to the pastoral regions like the forest of Arden, and they get transformed for the better, and they go back home as better human beings. This is exactly what the play tries to tell us. Shakespearean plays can be divided into comedies, histories, and tragedies. When the European Renaissance reached England, it found its fullest and most lasting expression in the drama. Of the various forms which this drama took, the first to reach its culmination were the histories. This is represented in the play Edward II, which was written by Marlowe, who was the predecessor of Shakespeare. Shakespeare himself wrote about 10 histories. These dramas reflect the interest of the Elizabethans who took great pride in their heroic past. Closely connected to the historical plays were the tragedies, in which the dramatists broke away from fact and relied more on their imagination. Though we can see the influence of Seneca in the forms of ghosts, in the forms of revenge, but the Shakespearean tragedy took a whole new turn. Shakespeare broke away from the conventional unities of time and place, and his plays were spread over a period of time, and they were not restricted to one place. He gave a picture of human life as affected by sin and suffering. So his characters were not just flat characters, they were round characters who underwent all the struggles and strifes of life. And that is perhaps the reason why Shakespeare is endearing to us even today. From comedies, we do not expect the depth that exists in a tragedy, yet Shakespearean comedies too have their underlying meanings. For example, plays like The Twelfth Night and As You Like It, for example, do not display the great skill of just entertaining, but they also delve deep into the human nature. They introduce charming creations where the characters speak rich lines in poetry and sparkling with wit and humor, and bring before our imagination a whole series of delightful scenes. A Shakespearean comedy has a very happy ending, a light-hearted one when compared to the tragedies. Most of the comedies involve marriages between the characters in the play, and the tone and style is more light-hearted. The patterns in his comedies include movement from the urban area into a rural background, that is, from the city to a forest, like the one which we will see in this play As You Like It, where the characters move from the city and start living in the forest of Arden. This pastoral atmosphere transforms them into better human beings. How it happens is something which will unfold as I teach the play to you people. This play was written just after Much Ado About Nothing, Henry V and Julius Caesar, and just before writing Hamlet in the year 1600. As You Like It contains few references of the Shakespearean theatre. Shakespeare's comedies generally seemed to be light-hearted. They are meant to entertain and to amuse, but not to provoke thought about anything more politically sensitive than the nature of love and poetry. Though the play contains the negatives of Duke Frederick and Oliver, both of them are negative characters in the play. Duke Frederick, he banishes his elder brother, the senior duke, to go and live in the forest of Arden. He usurps his kingdom. And Oliver, who is the elder brother of Orlando, cheats him and plans to get him killed. We see a reformation in these two characters by the very end of the play. As the play progresses, we realize the Duke gets transformed. He talks to a religious man and realizes that ruling is not that important as happiness is. There is a shift of Duke Frederick from the city, and he moves into the forest of Arden, and he gives the usurped kingdom back to his elder brother. Oliver, at the same time, realizes the goodness of his younger brother Orlando, and the moment he comes into the forest of Arden, both the brothers reconcile the differences and become friends again. It is here that Oliver finds his love, and it is here that he finds happiness. The play ends on a happy note. Shakespeare is not really interested in getting the wickedness of either Duke Frederick or Oliver punished. Instead, he just reforms them. He doesn't give a lot of importance on that evil aspect of theirs. He is more into understanding the nature of Rosalind. He is more into understanding the nature of Orlando, Touchstone, and Jacques. The forest of Arden provides a lot of freedom to all the characters. These characters who were stifled in the city atmosphere, once they come to this forest, feel that they are absolutely free. Perhaps nature makes them to be their self. So all through the play, we notice that the characters, they speak their mind. Some basic historical details are useful in understanding this life that they come across in the forest. As I was telling earlier, it is all about the noble people who flee from court and come into the forest of Arden. They meet the shepherds and the woodsmen there, and they feel more happy living among nature. This aspect is a part of allegorical literary genre called the pastoral drama, which was based on classical writings which were extremely popular during Shakespeare's day. Contemporaries like Edmund Spenser, Sir Philip Sidney were great writers who wrote pastoral works. Pastoral works are frequently used as social criticisms. This is something we must keep in mind because to a large extent this is a pastoral work too. It is actually a natural world versus the life in the city. It usually focuses on the evils of the city life, such as the cruel intentions of the mistresses, the politics that takes place in the courts, and the strife that takes place in the city life. When compared to that strife, life in nature, life in a wood or life in a forest is far more calmer and it is far more peaceful. People find themselves in a true sense when they are away from this strife. Shakespeare doesn't say that living in a natural world is better, but he feels that people, when they are stressed out in the cities and they come and live in the forests, they go back to the cities as better human beings. Duke Senior's men, we see, are always violating nature. They kill the deer, they abandon it. Forest is not always about happiness. It has got its own problems where the weather is concerned. However, none of the characters are really unhappy about living in the forest. Everything comes out well in the end. The play is obviously intended to entertain and stimulate rather than to bear any political message. Let us enjoy this play further. The next module, I'll introduce you to the first act of the play. The play opens on a tone when the members of the family are at loggerheads with each other. Sir Roland des Bois has two sons, Oliver and Orlando. Oliver is the elder one and Orlando is the younger one. In those days, all the property of the father was inherited by the eldest son. Oliver does not help his brother in any way. He does not give him the patrimony nor the education. He in fact hates his younger brother Orlando. He incites Charles, who is a wrestler, to kill Orlando in a wrestling match that was to be held in the court of Duke Frederick. Duke Frederick has an elder brother called the senior duke in the play. He does not like his elder brother. He usurps his dukedom and banishes him into the forest of Arden. So here we see two brothers who are at loggerheads with their brothers, Oliver with Orlando and Duke Frederick with his elder brother. The senior duke has a daughter. Her name is Rosalind. She continues to stay with her uncle. Duke Frederick has a daughter. Her name is Celia. Both the cousins are very close to each other, unlike the brothers. The wrestling match that takes place in Duke Frederick's court has an unexpected turn. Orlando wins this fight, and his reality is revealed to the Duke. The Duke realizes that he is the son of Sir Roland des Bois, who is actually a close friend of his elder brother. He does not like this, and he snubs the young man Orlando and advises him to leave court. Rosalind, who realizes who Orlando is, falls in love with him immediately, for he appears to be a very brave person. Orlando too falls in love with Rosalind. When the Duke comes to know that Rosalind has fallen in love with Orlando, he is not very happy about that situation either. He starts nursing a suspicion against Rosalind, and he banishes her from his kingdom. on the grounds of treason. Celia, who is his daughter, implores him to overlook the fact, but then he does not heed to her. Celia's love for her cousin is so great that she agrees to go to Arden along with Rosalind. Since they both belong to a very high class and a very high society, and they are very rich, they decide that going into the forest in their finest of clothes is not an appropriate thing to do. Rosalind disguises herself as a young lad and calls herself Ganymede. And Celia acts as her younger sister and a country lass, and she calls herself Aliena. The two young girls take along with them Touchstone, who is a court jester, as they go into the forest of Arden. Let us move ahead and see what happens in Act 2 of this play. Act 2 of this play introduces us to the senior duke, and his followers who are living in the forest of Arden. Despite the occasional sharpness of nature in the form of cold and sharp winds, there is no problem in the forest for the duke and his followers. He passes time in hunting and he kills the deer. Of course, this is objected by Jacques, his jester, because according to Jacques, it is not right to kill the deer in their natural habitat, and is severely criticized by him. Meanwhile, the flight of the ladies along with Touchstone to the forest of Arden has been discovered by Duke Frederick. He is very angry that both the girls have run away to the forest, and he instantly orders for a search. But there is a nurse called Hesperia who tells him that she has overheard the girls talking about Orlando. Now the Duke is under the impression that Orlando has accompanied Rosalind and Celia into the forest. So he asks his people to go in search of Orlando. He then gets an idea. If it is difficult to find Orlando in the forest, why not capture Oliver, his elder brother, who would eventually lead him to Orlando? What the Duke does not realize is that Oliver does not like Orlando at all and had planned to get him killed in the wrestling match. Now, once Rosalind, Celia and Touchstone arrive at the forest of Arden, they come across a peasant, a shepherd called Corin, along with his friend called Silvius. Corin meets them and tells them that there is a cottage for sale. Rosalind, who is dressed as a young man, Ganymede, starts her conversation with Corin and says that he is interested in buying the house. Silvius comes across as a lovelorn person who is totally unhappy because of his unrequited love. Ganymede sympathizes with Silvius and tries to console him. Rosalind, who is acting as Ganymede, employs Corin to buy the cottage on their behalf. The spirit of the woodland changes Rosalind. A girl is now acting as a young man. Obviously, we see a lot of change in Rosalind's character. She has become more free-spirited. She is able to now voice her thoughts more freely, something which she would have never done had she been a girl. The forest provides an atmosphere where she is herself. And that is how the character of Rosalind grows. And that is how she becomes a major heroine in all of Shakespeare's comedies. Orlando also enters the forest. But how he enters the forest is something which I'll tell you now. After the wrestling match, when Orlando gets home, He has a loyal servant called Adam, who is a very old man. Adam tells Orlando that Oliver is set to burn down his lodgings in the night when he is asleep, and advises Orlando to flee from there. He gives him all his money. Orlando is very thankful to Adam, but Adam implores him to take him along with him to the forest of Arden. So now Orlando, along with Adam, is also on his way to the forest. So now we see slowly all the characters moving from the city and coming into the forest of Arden. There, when he comes to the forest of Arden, Adam is extremely hungry because he is very old. Orlando comes across the banished duke and draws his sword to fight with him. But he is invited to join for dinner, and the duke offers him hospitality and learns more about his ancestry. Let us now see what happens in the third and the fourth acts of this play. Beginning of Act 3 finds Oliver banished from his dukedom and his properties confiscated. And unless within a year, if he does not produce Orlando in front of Duke Frederick, he will not get back his properties at all. Oliver has to now go to the forest of Arden in search of Orlando because he thinks that is where Orlando is. So now we have another character moving into the forest of Arden. Oliver takes this journey into the forest of Arden, and then as the play progresses we see that there is a transformation in him too. In the forest of Arden, Rosalind and Celia are happily enjoying their time, and they come across verses written on the barks of trees. These verses are love verses written by Orlando. Of course, they are not beautiful to really read, but then Rosalind realizes that Orlando is really in love with her. They come across Orlando, but Orlando is unable to recognize the cousins because of their disguise. He starts talking about his love for Rosalind. Rosalind, who is disguised as Ganymede, talks like a saucy lackey and shows her wit. She tells him that he doesn't appear like a lovesick man, and she offers to teach him what love is all about. She asks Orlando to visit her as Ganymede, and as Ganymede, she would teach Orlando how to really woo and win a girl, a training that she is likely to give him. The subplot of Audrey and Touchstone is also introduced in this part. Audrey is a local of the forest, and Touchstone tries to get married to her. But this marriage is hampered by Jacques because he feels that Touchstone is trying to cheat Audrey. We come across the dark side of Touchstone's nature in this part. The act also introduces the love story of Silvius and Phoebe. Phoebe is another native of the forest. After overhearing Phoebe's cruelty to Silvius, because Phoebe shuns Silvius's love, Ganymede, who is actually Rosalind, rebukes Phoebe. Phoebe is so enamored by the looks of Ganymede that she falls in love with Ganymede. Ganymede rejects her. And the best part is Phoebe uses Silvius as a messenger to send love letters to Ganymede. So here the plots are slowly unfolding. We are introduced to more and more characters. So I was talking about the 4 love stories: Orlando, Rosalind, Oliver, Sylvia, Touchstone and Audrey, and Silvius and Phoebe. All these love stories will end in happy marriages at the very end of the play. So basically the plots are: the fight between the brothers, Duke Frederick and the senior Duke, Orlando and Oliver, and the marriages of these four couples. Let us now move ahead with the fourth and the fifth acts and see what is in store. In Act 4, we are introduced to melancholy Jacques because he is very pessimistic. He is a court jester, as I have already told you before. His conversation with Rosalind on his melancholy reveals his true nature. Rosalind disapproves of his philosophy. She calls his melancholy a pose. Entrance of Orlando into the scene makes Jacques run away from there. There is a mock viewing which takes place between Orlando and Ganymede, who poses to be Rosalind, and it is officiated by Celia. In another plot development, Rosalind receives a letter from Phoebe, who has actually fallen in love with Ganymede. And this letter is sent by Phoebe through Silvius. Now, that is the most ironical part. Rosalind criticizes Phoebe for her ill temperament, and she also criticizes Silvius for his lovelorn stupidity. In another development, in the meantime, Oliver comes into the forest of Arden. He is taking rest under a tree and is very close to a lioness. So when the lioness attacks him, Orlando is around and he saves his brother. And Orlando is grievously injured. Once Oliver realizes that Orlando has saved him, both the brothers reconcile and they become friends again. Orlando, who is severely wounded, instructs Oliver to go and meet Rosalind and show him a handkerchief which is drenched in his blood. Rosalind, who has been waiting for Orlando to arrive, faints when she sees a handkerchief drenched in Orlando's blood. In Act 5, Orlando learns from his brother that Oliver has instantly fallen in love with Celia, and his love is reciprocated. They now wish to get married. Sensing Orlando's sadness, unlike his brother, he will not be getting his beloved because Oliver feels that Rosalind is not yet attainable. Ganymede pacifies him and tells him that he has magical powers which would eventually see that he would get united with his beloved Rosalind. So, as we see, the plots are moving together and the stories are finally moving towards their culmination. So, here we have Oliver falling in love with Celia, his love is reciprocated. Ganymede in the next scene, reveals herself as Rosalind, so they get married. Audrey gets married to Touchstone, and Phoebe, when she realizes that Ganymede is actually a woman, but obviously cannot marry a woman, so she gets married to Silvius. So, this is how the play progresses towards its culmination. As these things happen, subsequently the lovers are united. There is an arrival of a very good news. Duke Frederick, who is under the influence of religion, has decided to give away his dukedom to his elder brother, the senior duke. So, now it is a happy ending. The senior duke can go back to his dukedom. Oliver, who is a reformed man, goes back home with his beloved Celia. So, the forest of Arden has helped these people in some way or the other. So, the play ends on a very happy note. The story As You Like It is borrowed from a novel called Rosalind, written by Thomas Lodge. It has many incidents which we find in As You Like It also, such as the neglect of the youngest brother, the violent quarrel, the wrestling match, the rescue of the youngest brother by an aged servant, and so on and so forth. Shakespeare modified and improved the story. The names of the characters have been changed in As You Like It. New characters like Jacques, Touchstone, and Audrey were introduced. Importance was given to Rosalind, and the usurping duke was not killed in the end. In fact, he was reformed. Shakespeare was always very careful in selecting names for his plays. The titles of his plays are always appropriate, suggestive, and they awaken curiosity. As the title declares, this play is full of gaiety, it is full of humor, it is full of joy and happiness. When someone first sees the play, it is a story of romance and some violence. People may like the play for these things. The characters in the play, as the play unfolds, we realize are very uncomplicated because they follow their simple wishes. They do something because they wish to do that. Oliver does not like Orlando because he genuinely doesn't like him. Everyone behaves the way they want to. All are happy and all are contented in the very end of the play. Lovers get their beloveds. Duke Senior is restored to his dukedom. The title suggests each acts as he pleases. Each behaves the way he wants. There is humor in the play. The title suggests this meaning. Everyone behaves the way they wish to. They are carefree, they are open, just like the Forest of Arden. Let us now move ahead and learn more about the play in the second part of this lesson.